and welcome to this episode of the DC Life Podcast. Today, we're going to chat with someone about something in the life of our church.
G'day, I'm Pastor Anthony Sligo. Welcome to this edition of the DC Life Podcast. Today I'm talking with our lead pastor, Greg Gardner, on the subject of rest. Hello, Greg. How you doing?
Hey, mate. I'm doing okay, thank you.
Good. We love talking about rest. This is everyone's favourite subject, right?
We do like talking about it. I'm just not so sure we're very good at it. I think it's one of those things. There's nothing more obvious probably in our lives than the fact that we need rest.
Yeah. Very true.
But we regularly struggle to get good rest. And often that feels like the world is conspiring against us. And that may be partly true, I think, maybe.
Definitely.
But I'm suspicious that a lot of our problems are kind of self-inflicted ones. Okay. And so maybe that means that there are some things that we can do about that. So maybe we can chat about that today.
Yeah, all right. So to be clear, what sort of rest are we talking about?
Yeah, good clarifier. We're going to talk about physical rest.
Okay.
Which the Bible speaks about this, and it speaks about it from the very get-go. I mean, in Genesis 1 and 2, tells us that God made everything in 6 days, and then on the seventh day he rested. Yeah. So he'd been working. God had been doing some work. This is one of the arguments that we make, that work is actually a good thing. Mm-hmm. We sometimes feel like work was a result of the fall, but we need to recognise God did work, and he gave humans work to do before sin entered the world. So before sin entered the world, everything was good, and so work in and of itself is a good thing. But to a point, God worked for 6 days. And then he rested on the seventh. Now, did God need to rest on the seventh? No, he didn't. Because God is infinite and all powerful and so forth. But he rested in order to set an example for us. And right there from the start, it was like, hey guys, this is how I want you to roll. I've set up the sun and the moon and the earth and all of these things so that when you guys figure this out, you'll realize that there's 7 days that make 1 week. Yeah. And there's 52 weeks in a year and so on and so forth. And so right from the get-go, he's sort of saying 1 day in every week it would be good for you to rest. And let me set a good example for you in doing that. So I want to speak about that physical rest. The example God gives us there, right at the very beginning of Genesis, but we also, it gets codified. It's in the 10 Commandments. It's, number 4 for those counting. But look, I don't intend this to be an expose on the Sabbath. Okay. Look, let me just say this: whether you're into a sort of Jewish Sabbath Saturday idea or a Christian Lord's Day Sunday idea, there's a couple of things that are common to both of them. First one is that it's a time set aside to worship the Lord. And the second thing is that it's for resting from your regular work. And it's that resting part that's kind of what I want to focus us on in this podcast, that sort of physical resting from our regular work.
Yeah, great, interesting. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, and it's good. I'm excited about getting into it.
Well, there'd be a lot more if we were going into the Sabbath
that's
argument.
right.
I'm going to be preaching on that later this year, so I'll
good.
push into that a little bit further when we do our 10 Commandments series.
Awesome.
But for the moment, let's
hang out for that in term 4 if you're itching on that.
Well, look, just to go there very quickly, our rest. There's another. The Bible talks about a spiritual rest.
Yes.
And that's where the book of Hebrews goes, and in chapter 4 talks about our rest being in Christ. So we are resting every day, spiritually in the work that Christ has already done for us, and that's a big part of understanding, what the Sabbath is really all about. It's been taken by the Israelites and by many Christians really to mean a whole lot of things that it was never intended to mean, and so we need not to get so wrapped up in our observance of that we overlook the spirit of the law in focusing on the letter of the law. Yeah. But we can push into that later.
That's great. Thank you for that little sidetracked. That's fantastic. So we're talking about physical rest, and it might be somewhat obvious, but why do we as people need physical rest?
Well, as I said before, God is infinite, so he doesn't need to rest, but we're not infinite. We are finite, and so we therefore need to recharge.
Yeah.
We are not an endless energy source, and so we kind of need to refresh. We're like any battery powered tool that we have these days.
Put it on the charger sometime.
We're only good for so long. That's right, and you got to get onto the charge again, and we do that by resting. Now, part of that is sleep.
Yeah. Of course, That's everyday occurrence for most of us.
Well, that's right. Otherwise, you will, go over very quickly. Experts say that the average adult needs somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every day. Yes, a lot of parents of young children would be thinking, "Oh my goodness, that'll be awesome." I think I've worked out for me, it's about the 8 mark.
Okay,
if
that's the sweet spot for you.
If I can regularly get about 8, I reckon that's pretty good for me.
Yeah.
Studies have also shown that taking time away from your regular work, your regular job. So, in other words, taking a holiday break.
Okay.
Is really beneficial for you at both a physical and also just a mental health perspective.
Yeah.
So all of the studies, and you can Google all this kind of stuff, but basically, if you take a regular holiday, or people who take regular holidays, they have lower stress, they've got less risk of heart disease, they've got a better outlook on life. And they generally have more motivation, like they're more,
interesting.
There's a bit more can-do, a bit more optimistic about their life in general. But look, you don't have to. You don't really need science to tell you this. You don't need to look at the empirical data from studies. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Like, you just can feel it. Like, if you've had a hard day working, you just go, "Oh, man, I'm exhausted." Or you just feel tired. Or if you've been working a lot, then fatigue is eventually going to start to creep in, and you're going to notice it, you're going to feel it, you're going to be talking to everybody about it. And so, it's something that's quite tangibly noticeable for everyone's experience.
Yeah, okay. So we, in our general run-of-the-mill week, we have a bunch of work to do. Lots of people have 5, maybe 6-day-a-week jobs. But the biblical example that's set out, when God worked 6 days and then rested on the 7th, is that what should be normal practice for Christians then?
Yeah, I think for a weekly rhythm, I mean, that's the example that God set for us. So, he worked for 6 days and then he rested on the seventh. That I think is something that we need to take notice of. For us to be following that example would therefore be, a good thing to do. I think, as a society, where we've gotten to in the developed world is essentially a 5-day work week.
Yeah.
That's the regular. I mean, there are some exceptions to that, but generally the idea is a 40-hour,
people,
5 8-hour days is a regular, normal kind of a full-time, what we would call it, work week.
Yeah.
So, given that our regular jobs are only requiring that much from us, finding a day to rest from the other 2 days that we've got available then shouldn't be too hard for us.
Yeah.
You would think. I think that if the Bible sets us that example of 1 day in 7, maybe that's what we should be shooting for. Yes, and given the work environments that most of us are in, it should be fairly doable, you would think.
Yeah. Okay. And so when we think about that day off rest, like what should it look like? Do we just lie on the couch, watch Netflix and Uber Eats all 3 meals so that we don't do anything and move minimally? And is that kind of what we're talking about?
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, I think we need to go back to what I said before about the purpose for this day of rest. That's both Old Testament and New Testament agree on this. That it is a day for worshipping the Lord.
Yeah.
And it is a day for resting from your regular physical whatever labours. Now, your job might not be particularly physical, but it'll still be having a physical effect on your brain if you're sitting at a computer or whatever it is that you might do. So it's still, to an extent, is physical. And so just resting from that regular work. And so spending part of that day in worship with of the Lord.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a Christian, traditionally Christians have met on the first day of the week since Jesus resurrected from the dead on the first day of the week. It's the practice in the early church that we see in the New Testament, and it's been the practice of Christians ever since then to be getting together and worshipping the Lord on that particular day. So I think to use part of the day for that is entirely appropriate, and most of us do get Sundays off, and so we get the chance to do that. To have a nap on Sunday afternoon, or to just run at a slower pace, or do something that refreshes you or revives you, or whatever rest might look like for you. That's entirely appropriate as well, and if that means some couch time of whatever form that might take, I suppose. If that works for you, then go for that. So I think that for most Christians, therefore, Sunday is probably
normally
the day that you should probably target to say, look, okay, in my weekly rhythm, I'm going to pick Sundays, and I'll treat Sundays differently, not in that kind of legalistic, I can't walk more than 20 steps, this sort of thinking, but just sort of saying that, I am going to take a day, and there's going to be a part of that where I'm going to be gathering with other believers and worshiping the Lord. But there is going to be some time where I will just take it easy on this day and let my body physically rest. Now there are those who have to work on Sundays. Medical people who work in that field. Law enforcement, firemen, hospitality. There's a few of those areas where people are required to work on a Sunday. So it may be that if that's the case for you, that you need to find another day in the week where you can get that rest.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't solve the meeting together with other believers question.
Yeah.
I think you know, as Christians, we should try and, you know, work our rosters so that, you know, by and large we can be available together on Sunday mornings, as much as it depends on us. And sometimes, you know, rosters can be arranged where you can do that, and sometimes you might have to take your turn at doing those shifts. But as much as it depends on you, just be having some time in your week where you can just rest up, not in a what I would call like a strict, like I'm going to just get all anxious if I haven't had some couch time this week or so forth, but more to look upon it as a discipline, as an act of you know, I'm going to organise my world, my life, and do this as an act of discipline because it's good for me.
Just intentionally plan to take a break, and that's good. And it's a challenge for many people, isn't it? Because the world that we live in is so frantically paced. Everything is instant demand, instant gratification, and so we're busy. Everyone's busy.
Yep.
Life is busy. And sometimes, even though it doesn't seem like life should be busy, it still feels busy.
Totally.
So how do we deal with this when we're busy, and yet we're encouraging them here to try and rest a day a week?
I think this is the bit that I was referring to before when I said I think a lot of our problems are self-inflicted. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. You know, and when I talk to people, you know, particularly after church on a Sunday, and you say, "How you going?" Quite often you'll get the response back, "Oh man, I'm busy. I'm so busy. You know, I've got this and this and this going on, and the week was crazy and frantic, and all of these things." And so we allow the hours of our days to be filled up with whatever it is we fill them up with, And so sometimes we kind of get ourselves into the position of thinking that we don't need rest.
Yeah, okay.
And so if I've got some available hours and I'm not working, then I can fill those hours with fun things, or I can fill those hours with things that I would be preferring to do, or things that I would find more productive because I'm trying to, I don't know, renovate the house, or I'm trying to, you know, achieve something in a particular hobby that I've got, or whatever. And so instead of making rest a little bit of a priority, I can fill those hours with all of these other things. And then before long we look around and we go, man, my life's busy. I just got so much stuff going on, and we just very quickly get consumed with these things, and rest just gets kicked to the curb. So
not necessarily bad things, but
No,
just
not
filling
bad.
up life with good things and not intentionally setting aside break and rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of priorities.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and we've all got to be very conscious of that, and probably more conscious than we we usually are.
Yeah.
To just know when you're getting to that point of just having, you know, stretched the elastic a little bit too far.
Okay.
Fiona and I talk about redlining. I don't know if you've probably heard me talk about this slide.
Yes, once or twice.
But this is the idea of using the analogy of an engine in a car, and most cars have got on the dashboard display, you've got your tacho, which measures how many revolutions per minute the engine is doing, and there'll be a red part of the tacho.
Yeah.
And if you read the user manual, it would say, you know, don't rev the engine constantly into that red zone.
Yeah.
Where you're just really making that engine work super, super hard.
As hard as it can, yeah.
Now, it's okay for an engine to redline for a little bit here and there. You know, you're going up a hill or you're towing something, or, you know, whatever.
Yep.
But the engine isn't designed to be run permanently in that red zone.
Yeah.
It's designed to go at a more a lesser pace, somewhere back the other way from that red line. Otherwise, as I say, the engine's probably going to blow up. And our lives and the pace of our lives, I think, are very similar to that as well. If we pack in so much to our lives where we just feel like we are constantly redlining, eventually our body is just going to say, sorry, I've had enough. And
the engine breaks down.
There'll be some physical consequences to you. That fatigue will mean that your body isn't able to fight off all of the lurgies that are around about, or you'll display some other symptom of your tiredness, and it'll start to affect your mental health, and anxiety and depression and all of those sorts of things will start to become a part of your world. So. It's about priorities.
Yep.
It's and just being aware rather than just sort of rolling along with life and just letting every wave that comes along just being hit by that. But to just sort of take stock at some point and go, man, okay, I am really busy and I'm feeling very fatigued, and there's probably something I need to do about this, because I've probably packed a little bit too much in, more than what God intended for me to pack in. This was a big one for me to learn, because I'm a workaholic and I'll just work 7 days a week,
Okay.
But the big thing one of the big things that I had to learn was that, God's designed me the way He's designed me, and I need this rest.
Yeah.
And so for me to take that rest is not being super lazy. It's actually being really wise, and it's setting me up to be able to work for longer because my body's healthier. Yeah. Rather than just going hard and redlining till I drop.
Yeah.
But to run at a pace that's more sustainable in the long term. And so just to sort of make some of those priority decisions and do that.
I think you even mentioned before that when you do get good, healthy rest, you're often more productive in the times when you are working throughout the week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, we've talked a lot about, I guess, the normal week, haven't we? And you kind of alluded to before the idea of holidays in our cultural context. Most employers will give you some annual leave allowance, and normally we earn this depending on how much we work, and most people get about 4 weeks off a year.
Yeah.
What's your take on the value of annual leave?
Annual leave is very valuable, Sly.
Okay,
do it.
We like taking rest.
Me too. It's one of the notes that I have on our DC staff meeting agenda every month that we meet. I just sort of say, have you got holidays? Are you planning holidays? What are your annual holidays up to?
And you get to chip me most months about it.
Well, I do. I'm going to keep annoying all the staff about it, because look, we all do run pretty hard. And most of our staff are bivocational. They've got regular jobs, and so they're kind of fitting in their, what they do for DC in and around that, as well as trying to, have enough rest and do all of the other things of life. And so to just, take those 4, 5, whatever, number of weeks you are allocated each year is just such a valuable thing. And all of the benefits that I spoke about before are there, because it allows you to recharge those batteries, and makes you able to last for the long term. If somebody tells me that they've got massive amounts of annual leave up their sleeve, and often if they're saying that to me, it's like it's a badge of honor. It's hey man, I've got like 33 weeks of annual leave. And you sort of think, man, you have never taken a holiday. You are about to burn out. Like it's just, it's actually not that clever. It might feel good to know that the boss owes you, half a year's worth of annual leave or something. But the effect of never taking a break is probably going to emerge very, 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 very quickly. Yeah. So take your holidays. Yeah. And I particularly say this to parents of young kids, because often you're in the grind of work and kids, and it's just all happening, and you don't get around to taking a holiday. A, that is bad for your long-term health, but B, you're just not making memories with your family. Like, you're not going to get those years back.
Yeah.
You know, and those pictures of, you know, you taking, you know, the kids to the beach or somewhere, you know, where you're having a holiday together and you're making those kinds of memories.
Yeah.
A, that's just great for your family, and it's great for your kids, and it shows them that dad and mum think that, you know, spending time with them is great and a priority and so forth. You don't want to grow up with your kids sort of saying, you know, we never really had any holidays, and you know, my parents didn't prioritise that. That wasn't important. So you're not going to get those years back, sadly. So take your holidays and get it done.
Do you think when it comes to that, you know, break, that it changes over time? Like, do we need more holidays as we get older, or, you know, when we're younger? Like, how does that play out?
I think you need the holidays just as much.
Okay.
When you're younger as when you're older. I think the need, how can I say it? I think the need is more obvious when you're older.
Okay.
Like, when you're younger, you feel like you're bulletproof. You know, I can do anything. I can just keep running.
Yeah.
You're generally you're physically fitter and so, because your body's just younger and you can handle a bit more. But if you've been neglecting your holidays and your breaks and just resting as you should, it will eventually catch up with you. And so maybe a person who has rested well along the way when they were younger, they might be in a better position when they get a little bit older. And the people who didn't rest as well when they were younger are not going to be as well off when they're older, because eventually it will catch up with you. We have a finite amount of energy, and if we are not refreshing and recharging as we should, as God's designed us, you know, to work, then it's gonna show. So yeah.
Learned my lesson the hard way about that once upon a time. That's a story for another day.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah. So, what are some tips? What's some advice? How do we get into good rhythms with rest and holidays?
Well, what I say on the holiday front is plan.
Okay.
Plan. Like, sit down, you know, if you're single, with yourself. If you're married, with your spouse. And just say, when are we going to take holidays this year? And just be really proactive about that. You know, sit down with the calendar and go, well, I think maybe let's target this month, or let's target these school holidays, or let's you know, do it in the spring when the weather is not, or whatever. Have some plan about it, and then make those arrangements. Like, go to your employer and say, can I have these weeks off? You know, put in the leave form or whatever. So you plan for it. That's the first thing. The second thing, fight for it.
Yeah.
Again, through experience and observation, sometimes, you know, we'll put a holiday in and we'll put it in pencil. You know, I'm going to pencil this in, and we sort of half-heartedly work towards it. But, you know, if life happens and things are busy, and we go, no, I can move that, and all of a sudden the holiday that we were going to have is now gone. And we haven't had that rest and the refreshing that we really needed. You got to fight for it, because people are gonna ring you up. People are gonna send you an email. People are gonna say, "Hey, can you do something in this week?"
Yeah.
And you look up your iCal, and I'm supposed to be on holidays, and you're like, maybe I could move the holidays, or maybe I could, you know, the temptation is going to be there.
Yeah.
To give up the holiday. I encourage people, fight for it. You know, when someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" and that, no, actually, I'm on holidays. You know, I've planned for it. I've booked something. You know, and we're taking holidays that week. And so, you fight off all the people who are going to want to take these holidays away from you, and you try and preserve it. I think those two are the biggest two.
Yeah. Okay.
Is planning it and then fighting for it.
Yeah.
And look, part of the planning too can be making arrangements.
Yeah.
You know, of what am I going to do with the kids? Are the kids coming with us? We have some time with the kids and then have some time without the kids maybe. And who's going to look after them? And how's that going to work? And how am I going to pay for this? And I need to set aside a little bit of money. And it doesn't have to be 5-star. It might be a tent, but we're gonna have a break. So planning, fighting for it. Those are the big things.
I like you just mentioned booking something. I know in my head, like if I've paid for something and it's it's coming, then I'm much less likely to reshuffle that.
And the beauty,
it's going to cost me.
There's almost an immediate mental health benefit from just booking a holiday.
Yeah, okay.
Like if I know that in 3 months' time,
you got
I'm going to have 2 weeks out of action, whatever, going somewhere nice. Then I can just feel like, okay, I've just got to last these next 6 weeks or
like
10
the
weeks.
Stopover
or whatever.
point towards the finish line.
Yeah, you can see the end of the tunnel, and so there's often just an immediate benefit just in that alone.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so lastly, long service leave. That's kind of like. Yeah, the next level of holiday, isn't it? Yeah. It's something that a lot of people do. You've worked for an employer for a certain amount of time, and so they kind of give you bonus holidays for or leave time. Because
it's a bit of a loyalty bonus, isn't it?
That's right, like frequent flyer points.
Yeah. Look, again, just do it. Yeah. I've spoken to people a lot who have earned long service leave and they could take it. But they're keeping it up their sleeve. It's almost like an insurance policy. I've got 2-3 months of leave owing to me, and I'm just sort of going to keep that there if ever I lose my job or a little bit of financial security. I think rather than seeing it for the value that it is of, man, you've just worked 10 years solid for this company or this organisation or what have you. Having 2 or 3 months of downtime where you can just fully really recharge can be of immense benefit to you. Now, I am, the worst person in the world to give this lecture because I've been so bad at doing this over the years. But I've got to tell you, like Fiona and I enjoyed a sabbatical break. For pastors, we call it a sabbatical, not long service leave. But we had a sabbatical break a couple of years ago, and I could not believe how much better I felt after not working for a couple of months. It really did recharge us, and it was just the best thing. And you don't know that beforehand. You're in the middle of stuff, and life's happening, and it's all busy, and you just sort of think, oh, man, 2 months out, I just can't afford that.
Yeah.
But, again, it's that idea of discipline, factor it in and do it. You will be much better off for it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for coming along and sharing with us today. It's great to dig into the topic of rest. I hope it's been a blessing to everyone listening out there, and we'll see you again next time.
Go book your holidays. All right.
If you'd like more information about what's going on at Disciples Church, check out our website or email us at podcast@disciples.org.au if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks for listening in. We'll catch you next time.